Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Sunday services at Center for Spiritual Living, Denver. We are a loving and prospering community in the heart of Denver and online. We now conduct hybrid services at the historic Grant Avenue Community Center and Sacred Place, located at 216 South Grant Street, Denver, Colorado. All are welcomed here. A place, space, and face of love. We are a spiritual community practicing universal principles that enrich our lives. We are grateful that you have blessed us with your presence. While online, we'd love to know you're watching with us. Feel free to leave a comment and let everyone appreciate you. With everything going on, life can feel overwhelming. CSL Denver wants you to know we are here for you. Please know that our practitioners are available for personal prayer work. Our licensed spiritual practitioners' names and phone numbers are available on our website at csldenver.org. Or if you have a prayer request, feel free to email it to info@csldenver.org. For your convenience, you'll find clickable links in the description of this broadcast. Rev Elzia, along with all our guest speakers, practitioners, service coordinators, and musical inspirations, want you to know how truly grateful we are that you are with us today. Thank you for your continued support and participation in our services, workshops, and events, as well as providing financial contributions to our center. If you're interested in upcoming events and information, we send out weekly newsletters. Sign up by visiting www.csldenver.org. We deliver services in a hybrid format where we meet in person at 216 South Grant Street. We will also continue to live stream all services on Facebook and YouTube every Sunday. Find us on our respective channels as well as on New Thought Media Network. Again, thank you for your precious attention. Now prepare for engaging enlightenment.
There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden where God's grace blooms. There is a garden where everything grows, a beautiful garden where love is sown. And in this place of light and love, you can have anything that you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true, a beautiful garden. That garden is you. And in this place of light and love, you can't have anything that you're dreaming of. There is a garden where dreams come true. A beautiful garden, that garden is you. Such a beautiful garden, that garden is you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Teresa Cardenas, practitioner here at CSL Denver. So nice to see you this morning. So if it feels comfortable, just sit in your chairs and close your eyes and quietly turn within for our invocation. So with that knowing that we are the center of God with no circumference, with no limitations, we feel that presence of spirit right here, right now, in our heart, in the heart of ourselves, in the heart of CSL Denver, in the heart of the community, in the heart of the universe. We are so grateful for this time together. We know that all that we plant in our garden comes forth. As we feed it and nurture it with the love and life of who we are, spiritual beings, essence of God itself, always becoming. In that universal oneness, we accept and know that we are here in the school of duality, which hones us, that friction of duality hones us into the smoothness of our own spiritual soul as we are always becoming God becoming us and us becoming God. And so we bless this space this morning. We know that the Elzia's message and the music and the background technicians, all is unfolding perfectly. Whether we are on a mountaintop, running that race this morning, being here at CSL Denver in a temple or a mosque, we are in a garden of love. And so it is. So it is. The reading this morning is adopted from Timothy Frake's Encyclopedia of Spirituality, Information, and Inspiration to Transform Your Life. Spirituality includes being able to embrace paradox. Examples include we need to be detached, but we need to be fully present, here and now, in the drama of life. We need to be self-disciplined, yet act in a spontaneous manner at times. We need to make our own effort, but also realize that we do nothing. We need to differentiate good from bad, yet go beyond both. We need to think in new spiritual ways, yet to know that all thoughts are just concepts. We need to cultivate compassion and relieve suffering, but also to understand that everything is perfect just the way it is. All of these dilemmas stem from one great dilemma. We experience ourselves as separate bodies and personalities, but we are also indivisible parts of the whole. Superficially, we are individual waves which rise and fall on the one great ocean of being, with which our deeper identity is linked. Following a spiritual path is an ongoing process of attempting to resolve the great paradox of being part of an indivisible whole. How can this be done? The word paradox itself gives us a clue. Coming from the Greek paradokion, beyond thought, the dilemma cannot be resolved by thinking about it. It is resolved in a profound acceptance of the fact that this is the way things are. A wave doesn't worry about being the ocean, it just is. We all know that living can be frightening. It can be a lonely, painful, grief-stricken ordeal at times. In the face of this, we desperately need to feel that in some way we are essentially safe. We need to know that our joys and suffering have real meaning. Spirituality answers these needs. It also frees us from the deep anxieties that caused by believing ourselves to be isolated egos. Finally, spirituality connects us to an immense benevolence that permeates creation, an unconditional compassion that beats the pulse of life, the great mystery. Those who dare to look beyond the limits of habitual horizons and glimpse the infinite goodness that is God are forever reassured that all is well. And based on Rabbi David Aaron in The Secret Life of God, discovering the divine within you, he says, peace, the Hebrew shalom, means wholeness and completeness. Peace is not when all agree, for that is impossible. It is the ability to realize that all the various perspectives, even if contradictory, are only partial perspectives of the whole picture. The truth is greater than the sum of the parts. The path to paradise is really paradox, and we need to make peace with the apparent conflict. One perspective can never be the be-all and end-all for understanding the ultimate truth, and therefore should not be taken too seriously, though it is a partial, accurate view of reality. From a higher perspective, it will be realized that there were no contradictions, but rather different perspectives of one complete truth. And our founder, Ernest Holmes, says, stop trying, stop struggling, begin to be calm, to trust in the higher laws of life. Even though you do not see them, they are still there. And now we have music by Lynn Floyd with his song of Unbound.
Good morning, CSL Denver. Lynn Floyd here with you. I hope you've had a great week. This is a song I wrote a while back. It's called Unbound. Open your mind and unfold your heart. Relax your senses and feel every part. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound. Unbound. Breathe every breath. Yeah. Release your cringe. Love without waiting, without waiting. Slowly unhinge. You ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound. Unbound. You can stop waiting for love to find you. Look inside your heart. Love's already who you are. It's already who we are. So lift up your voice. Lift it up now, now, and let it be heard. Let it be heard. And tell me your story. Tell it to me. And don't leave out a word. Not a word, no. 'Cause I think I have been there too. I'm a seeker just like you. And you ain't got a thing to fear. Looks like love is growing here. So take your guard and let it down. Go deeper still until you come unwound. unbound. Lay it all down, down, down. Lay it all down, unbound. Open your mind and unfold your heart. Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you, Gary Lynn, for that. I don't even know how to say it this morning because he hit me at a place there with this Unbound that really speaks to the topic of the day of embracing contradictions. So first and foremost, I want to say good morning and welcome everyone to CSL Denver, a place, a space, and a face of love, a spiritual community teaching ancient principles and utilizing ancient wisdom to empower our lives and the lives of others. Now, as we look around us, especially here in Colorado, we see the leaves are beginning to change and fall has failed, as they say sometime, and this whole idea of transformation is very visible. Very visible. There's that point where we go from one season to another and you hardly notice. You go to sleep one night and you wake up and something else has happened. And sometimes in our mind, it seems very paradoxical. How did that happen? The tree was green last night. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. I even took a picture. And this morning, it's become yellow. So when we begin to look at this idea of embracing contradictions or embracing challenges, the first thing that I think is of utmost importance, that is this idea of contradictions and paradoxes is the most exciting, the most fruitful, the most joyous, and sometimes the most frustrating thing about life. Because it is through these moments of contradiction or paradox that we begin to learn who we are, what life is, what God is, what the higher power is. Because the name doesn't matter, right? We call gravity gravity. We could have called it Topo Gigio. It would still did the same thing. If you jump off the building, you would still come down. So we don't get stuck on labels. We use them to make the colloquial conversation easy, but it's the principle behind these things that we really have to dive into and get an understanding of, and enact them in our lives so that we begin to live life fully. To live life fully. So what is a paradox? I guess the first thing we probably should define that before we go trepsing down the path. And a paradox is this idea of something that's not consistent, something that's self-contradictory, right? As Teresa in her reading so eloquently put out there. But this statement or preposition or position of contradiction is a tool for enlightenment. A tool for enlightenment. And the great teacher, Jesus, said this: to gain your life, you got to lose your life. Now that seems very paradoxical. To gain your life, you got to lose your life. And to live, you got to die. Now, someone that's not familiar with this idea of contradictions or paradoxes would say one or two things. Show me the door because I'm leaving right now. These people are out of their ever-loving mind. Or if they're curious about life, they'll ask a question. Well, what do you mean by that? And that's what the paradoxes are here for. That's what the contradictions are here for us to take a deeper look at life, to take another approach to the way we're doing things. Now, how many in the audience, have heard this great quote, but I don't know who it is. They say, if you keep doing the same thing the same way, you're going to get the same results. Now, that's wisdom right there. And I tried it once or twice, and I did it the same way, and guess what I got? The exact same thing. And so it is something totally new that we need to embrace, is this idea of paradox, of contradictions. Because they're a great teacher, and they can lead to wisdom that will get us through tough times. It says, when the going get tough, the tough get going. And that's what we have to do now. When we look around us, everything is askew. I'm going to use a nice word to describe it. I'm going to say it's askew. The weather is askew. Politics are askew. You're not supposed to talk about politics from the pulpit. That's why I'm just using the word. I'm not talking about it. It's askew. Religion itself has become askew. So there's a greater question to be asked. There's a greater paradox that's presenting itself to us that allows us to stop, if we're careful, if we're concerned, to ask, what is it that life is trying to tell us in this situation? I don't know if some of you saw the news yesterday or day before yesterday about the flood in New York City. The subway flooded. I mean, not kind of flooded, it really flooded. Right? Now, and it said they got enough rain in one day that was something equivalent to a couple of months or something. It was paradoxical to me. I couldn't even understand that. But one thing it's going to do, it's going to require each of us to ask questions, to contemplate, and to lean on two things a little bit more. That's faith and works. Now, the Bible lays these two things out in contradiction, right? Because we have the one verse in Romans 3:28, it says this: a person is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. Meaning, you got to have faith when you do something. You can't think it's going to get, you got to have, faith is different from belief. Because I believe something will happen, well, it may not happen. But if I have faith, that's a more strong footing. It's because we move from hope to belief to faith. And after we've dealt with faith for a while, we step into a knowing. I don't have to have faith that gravity is working. I know it's working. That's why I don't climb on the top of this building and jump off. But once I get to the place of knowing, now that opens up a whole new world. So I have to go back and start hoping. So that's what the Wright brothers did when they came up with the first plane. They understood gravity, but they was hoping that they could, step into this law of aerodynamics and supersede it for a little while. And they went through and they got it. Now, the other part in James 2:24, a person is justified by works and not by faith alone. Now, if that's not a paradox, first you tell me I got to work, but then you say, but I just can't work. I got to have faith, but then I just can't have faith. I got to work. And now we're in a circle. You remember when you were on the playground as a kid, you was on the merry-go-round, and they had that person who all they wanted to do was push. They didn't want to get on. They just want to push because they know once they start, you can't get off. No matter how much you screaming and stop and let me off. Well, that's what we're in. We're in this paradoxical merry-go-round of how do we deal with life? How do we begin to say, stop, let me reset, let me figure out what's going on in life? What's going on first and foremost in my life, right? What do I need to do? How do I need to change? What questions do I need to ask? And that's what the paradox inevitably will ask you and demand of you, is to ask the question. Is to ask the question. But now, in our society, I don't have my phone here. If I had my phone, I wouldn't have to ask it. I could ask Google, right? Now, that's kind of like asking a question, but I don't have to sit with anything. When I ask Google, when I go on and ask Chat GPT, I'm expecting an answer that I don't have to really contemplate. I'm expecting the answer to be 100% correct. Not so. Because we have, there's a verse in the Quran, the second chapter, the first verse of the Quran that says, this is a book, in it is guidance clear without doubt to those who believe in the seen and the unseen. The seen and the unseen. How can I see something that can't be seen? That's a paradox. But nobody has seen gravity. Nobody has seen electricity. Nobody has seen aerodynamics. But we do know they exist, and we can take advantage of those laws. So this month, the theme is, how do we create a paradoxical mindset? Looking at all these different things. How do we begin to embrace this idea of contradictions and divine paradoxes, if you will, so that we can move forward, so that we can be faithful and workful, if you will. I made up a word there, workful. Because that's what it takes. For me to look at a situation and have faith is one thing. That'll put my heart in the right place, but I may need to move a couple of rocks. I may need to take some nails and boards and hammer them together to create a community. We talk about the beloved community. How many people are really working for the beloved community? Or are we just hoping we get a beloved community? Are we believing we can have a beloved community? But ain't nobody working for a beloved community. I still don't, you stay on your side of and I stay on my side. Your dog came in my yard, now we fighting. I mean, really, this is what paradoxes mean. We have to begin to not live life, as they say, casual. Because the saying goes, if you take life casual, you will end up a casualty. And that's what's happening all over the world. We see it. We see it. We see a lot of lip service. We see a lot of stuff because the paradoxes are too much. But as we begin to get this toolkit together to deal with the paradox, the ancient Hermetic teachings has given us the master key to open the door, to deal with it. And that is the principle of polarity. The principle of polarity. Now, what does the principle of polarity say? The principle of polarity says this. First and foremost, there is one thing. Not two, not four, whatever you come up with. There is one thing. But to understand that one thing, you have to ask questions. You have to look at the different points of it. So when I say temperature, you don't automatically go to a certain number, right? Temperature could be hot or cold, but it's still one thing, temperature. And there's a gradient. There's a different degree from what we've categorized as cold or what we categorize as hot. So this principle of polarity, this law of polarity says there is one thing. And the only difference that we see between the apparent differences is a matter of degree. Right? That's what we learn. We take math, and that part that most of us didn't like, them graphs, and we got to show the curve, and you're like, oh Lord, please help me. But when we could get into it for just a moment, we could see that the difference between 0 and 1 was a whole lot of degrees. And at one point, if we look at this temperature thing, at one point, at what point does it stop becoming hot and it becomes cold, or vice versa? Kind of like when fall and winter and summer changes. It's not September 22nd is not the official, that's the official number we recognize, the 22nd, but the weather that's indicative of fall doesn't happen right then. A great sign that says this is life. There's a oneness of life, but for you to understand it, we have to begin to analyze it. And to do that, I have to put them in juxtaposition to one another. If I never said to you anything about down, up would have absolutely no meaning. None. There would be no meaning if I said up, because it's only up in relationship to down. So that's what we have to begin to look at life. We have to begin to look at this polarity of life and not look for so much absolutism. So if I can get that first slide, this is something that Ernest Holmes says. The riddle of the universe is a paradox. The question is its own answer. For the mind that asks the question is also of the mind that answers it. Now, boy, that seems like a whole big mess right there. I'm asking the question from this mind, but the answer to the question is also in the mind. Because there's one thing, we have to bridge the gap. We have to figure out what those degrees are that we're dealing with, that we're working with. And so when we begin to understand this law of paradox, we begin to reconcile those differences. So I can reconcile the difference between hot and cold and just say, there is the temperature gradient today. I'm sounding like a weatherman. There's a temperature gradient today, and you might want to wear a raincoat. You might want to, take a sweater that you can wear in the morning and take off in the evening, because the gradient is changing. That gradient happens with love. It happens with forgiveness. It happens with growth. It happens with everything in our lives. And when we can successfully embrace this whole idea of contradictions, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, because thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Even though I'm walking down here in the valley, I'm still comforted, because I understand that this is a paradox. This is part of life. I can't pick and choose. And so if we look at this next slide, this second slide here, it speaks, it's a little wordy, but it speaks to the point. It says, what we must avoid, however, is the confusion which arises from a belief in a final revelation. For the belief that all truth is a lasting discovered, or that someone, person, or someone system of thought has delivered the last word, there are no finalities in any science, in any philosophy, or any religion. None. And so what did our founder says, he coined all that down into a nice little phrase: be open at the top. All of that gets coined down to be open at the top. Be open to new insights. Be open to new lessons. We're still discovering. Just the other day, they had, forget the name of it, the rocket ship that came by and dropped off a sample of the rocks it took from an asteroid and kept on going to go get some more. We never had that before. We've never had any asteroid dust that came from very close to the creation of this universe. But imagine someone just said what they said: the earth is flat. We don't need to look at anything else. Imagine all of the comforts and joys of life that you have right now that you would not have if we stopped and took a finality of what the world is now, not looking at the contradictions, not looking at the paradoxes. So when we do this, we begin to step into a life that is full. So let's embrace these contradictions. And to do that, I want to give you 3 tools that makes it like a Swiss Army knife. Everybody knows a Swiss Army knife, right? You get that Swiss Army knife, you got the spoon on it, and you got the wrench, and you got the screwdriver, and you got in that one toolkit, you got multiple things to help you navigate if you get in a situation where you can't really understand what's going on. So we embark on this journey of life of transformation, and I'm gonna ask a primitive question. How many people think that they are not transforming? See, I knew I was gonna get that answer. Yes, everybody is transforming. Just think about it. As you used to say, my uncle would always tell me, because I was born premature and I was in the incubator, and he used to make me cry. I'm ashamed to say it now. He said, "Boy, your head was so big it looked like a football, and you could fit in a coffee cup." He said, I told your daddy, said, "Man, you ain't gonna even bring that mess home right there. That thing it's not gonna make it." But the point that he helped me understand was, if you have a will to live, if you have a inkling to move through contradictions, life is a wonderful journey. And so here are 3 tools. The first one is to examine your assumptions. Examine your assumptions. What are you assuming when you wake up every morning? The weather's going to be hot, weather's going to be cold, I'm going to have food, I'm not going to have food, my job's going to be there, my job's not going to be there. What assumptions are you making? If I can get this next slide, it kind of speaks to this. Question everything, even if it represents generations of conventional wisdom. What are your assumptions? So you got to examine your assumptions all the time. Ask the question. Ask the question. And then when you get to that point of asking the question, now here's the kicker. What is the premise and what is the context from which you are asking? Now I'm going to step back and break that down. So, because when we look at the premise of something, we're basically looking at the foundation of it, right? And we saw in that other slide, it talked about if we take the finality of things, whether it's a science or a philosophy or a religion, we kind of get locked into it, or we get locked into that framework, right? Which speaks to the context. The context is the framework, right? So we have a foundation and we have a context, right? I can tear this whole building down on the inside. As long as the foundation's good, I can redo the rooms, I can set up new windows. So when we are looking to understand this toolkit, the first thing, sometimes we have to expand the foundation. Not big enough, if I'm in a zone where I can't make it any bigger going up, I got to go out. So I got to get a bigger foundation. I love going to saunas. I don't have one in my house. To get one, I got to change the context of my house. Something got to go away for that sauna to come in there. And this is how we begin to live life, as they say, 100%. Live it out loud, as we were talking last month. What are your assumptions? This next one is difficult because it makes us go beyond this. Carl Jung says this: the paradox is one of the most valued spiritual possessions. Only the paradox comes anywhere near the comprehending the fullness of life. That means you have to accept ambiguity. That's the second key. You have to accept ambiguity. Everything is not going to be crystal clear. Everything is not going to be laid out in a silver platter. Now, with modern technology, we get fooled. We think it's right there at the blink of an eye, at the push of a button, at the ask of Google to bring you something forward. But there's always ambiguity, and you have to begin to accept that. Because if you don't, that means we're going to get stuck back in that locked foundation of how we live life. Think about if you were still living the foundation that you had at 8 years old right now. that would be something that is just unconceivable as an adult. Now, if you're 8, that's still good, right? But if you're not 8 anymore, living your life from a foundation of 8ness, if you will, would be a mess. So again, that's the nature of the universe, is ambiguity. We like to think we live in this world of black and white, but we don't. It's 1,000 shades of gray. And when we ourselves, or when we find someone we know that lives in that black and white situation, oftentimes, not all the time, oftentimes life becomes a real struggle because they can't navigate. They can't move. They can't laugh. They can't have joy because they're in this one little box. It's one little box. And so what did Jesus say about this ambiguity? He made it real clear. See, I love it when they make it real clear. Seek and ye shall find. I mean, real simple. Seek and ye shall find. Which means if you want to find yourself, you got to seek yourself. That's a contradiction. To find yourself, you have to seek yourself. And sometimes they say, look, the easiest way to do that is to go hide yourself somewhere. Just hide yourself so now you can go look and find yourself. Meaning you have to give it all up. You have to let go of what assumptions and the ambiguities have to flow in of who you are, what you think you are, so that you can find your real self. Not the self that go to work, not the self that has a relationship, not the self that go to the parties or to the movies. That's a part of it. That's an aspect. We're talking about these degrees of the one thing. But what we really want to know is the one thing. And when we understand that, then these paradoxes, it's just a matter of degree. I just keep working at it. I just keep working. So when I know that I'm an emanation of the Most High God, filled with wisdom, light, and understanding beyond my earthly comprehension. Last night, everybody went to sleep. Nobody thought about keeping their heart beating. Nobody thought about breathing. They went to sleep, lost consciousness, the heart kept going, breathing kept going. That's a symptom. That's a clue of what happens when we find ourselves. We don't have to do things. Things just happen. And we're in a state of awareness. We're in a state of, checking and examining our assumptions that we know the right place at the right time and the right turn. That's what we need for a toolkit to deal with the problems that's going on today. You can't figure it out, not in your head. Well, I take that back. I can't figure it out. Now, if y'all can figure it out, please tell me, because I can't figure it out. So what do? I try to stay centered. I try to deal with all of this and find the one thing, the Spirit of God that is in each and every one of us. And so when we can examine our assumptions and when we can accept ambiguity, the third thing we need in this toolkit is to look beyond the obvious. So if I can get that next slide, that's slide 5, it says, I would rather have questions. I would rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned. I don't want to be in this place to where I know everything. That's a tremendous, you ever find yourself at work or with some kids or with some family, and even if you didn't put the mantle on yourself, they assumed you know everything. Boy, that's a tremendous pressure. That is a tremendous stumbling block, because inevitably somebody's gonna come to you with a question and you ain't gonna have the answer. And now there's two things. I mean, it's more, but I'm gonna pick two of the many. You're gonna say blah, 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 because you're making it up and you have no idea what you're saying, or you're gonna be humble enough to say, I have no idea what I'm saying. And so we're gonna have to ask some questions. We're gonna have to step into this ambiguity. We're gonna have to figure this out together with the spirit of the intelligence of the entire universe. Because if we look at every advance in any field, that's what happened. Now, I haven't gone to see that movie about the atomic bomb. What's the name of that movie? Oppenheimer. Yeah, I didn't go see that movie. But I know enough about the story that when they were able to do that, what did they do? They built a whole town of people with the same idea, asking the same questions, to look at the ambiguity, to come up with this and make it happen. And so that's what we have to do in our life. That's what the beloved community is. We have to come together. We have to work together. We have to try to solve these things together. And when we can do that, we allow the energy of love to transform everything. Because we understand what we're dealing with, and we understand, more importantly, what we have to lose. So, as always, we don't judge by appearances. And to do that, we have to step into action. And so if we look at this next slide, these call to action, because every time we have a Sunday service, we have to have some actions, because I just can't believe this stuff. I have to act it out so that it begins to become a faith. The first thing is, ask yourself, how can I embrace a wider range of perceptions than the one I typically assume? Well, that's a lot. I know I'm asking a lot, but we got to start somewhere. And then the second thing is, find a topic you don't quite understand or agree with, and find someone to engage in dialogue about it. Key word there, dialogue. Not argue, not try to prove your point, not try to make them wrong, but have a dialogue to exchange from two different perspectives on the same thing. Because that's what it's going to take for us to get out of the mess that we're in. And so when we can do that, we step into this closing statement. Paradox invites us to embrace the mysteries of our life with humility and awe. It reminds us that our journey of faith is not a straight path, but a beautiful tapestry of contradictions that leads us closer to God. As we grapple with the paradoxes of life, of God, the presence and the absence, the interplay of grace and work, and the strength found in weakness, may we find the solace it knows that faith is what we build our tabernacle on, our church on, our mosque on. Because we understand that the divine mysteries of life will unfold in due time and in due season. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, Mother God, that dual aspect of life, that one cannot happen without the other. We understand that the intelligence of the universe is vast, it's wide, it's more than we ever can imagine in our physical state of mind. But as we embrace paradoxes, as we step into these contradictions, that grace of insight allows us to see more and more, which allows us to be more and more. And so I know that to be true for each and every one of us in this room, for anyone that may be listening online, and for those who may listen to this tape recording later. Because we understand that if we fully embrace the divine wisdom of the universe with questions, there's no way to lose. The answers will be provided. And so I declare right here that each and every one of us are waking up this moment to be better than we were the last moment, to embrace an idea that God is always with us, that the answers are always within the mind that asked it. And when I can allow the Spirit to move through me, to awaken me, to encounter different relationships and people and places and situations, I blossom like a flower in the sun. And so it is for that I give thanks. I give thanks for this opportunity to live this life, to experience this life, and to grow immensely as I begin to open up, to drop my assumptions, to ask the questions, and to look beyond the obvious. Because we know that there's only one thing, and that is God having its way. And so it is in that understanding that I release this prayer into a law that is infallible, that is always working, that is always providing what it needs to make itself known and to make itself acceptable. And so with that, I release, I let go, and I know that it is so, and so it is. Amen. And so as we just try to get an affirmation to anchor this in, if you could bring up that affirmation, that would be really good. And it says, I embrace a paradox mindset in everything I do. That's the affirmation to anchor this in and to anchor that prayer in, so that not that we want to be nervous about what we're doing, but we want to step into it with the child's mind. That's what Jesus meant, be ye as a child. If you're going, you got to be curious. You got to ask the tough questions. You think about when a kid asks a question, they don't care about anything, about your feelings, about the timing. They don't care about none of that. They ask, and you look at their little faces, they're so open-hearted and so, they just, why is one of your legs longer than the other? And even if you're mad, you can't be mad. So this is what we need to do. We have to embrace this paradoxical mind. So we want to thank you for being here. Now is that time of offering, of giving. And we are so happy and moved for the time, treasure, and talents of each and every one of you here and online for what you give to CSL Denver. We are a loving community, seeking to be more beloved and seeking to be more active in the community. And your support in however you do it allows us to do that. So if you look across the bottom of the screen, you'll see the many different ways you can give. You can go to our website, www.cslddenver.org, and hit the donate button. You can mail to the P.O. box, or you can text to give. But however you give, please give, and we appreciate it. And so, as is customary, when we do our offering, we have our tithe. If you can place your hand upon your heart when you give the tithe, our affirmation, and repeat this. This perfect gift is spirit informed, circulating and blessing all that it touches. Freely I give, and joyously I receive, and so it is. Amen. And so it is. Amen. And so Teresa is going to come and give us a couple announcements. And we thank you.
Thank you, Elzia. Just another one of your beautiful talks. Thank you. Okay, our announcements. We have a couple of upcoming events. We have an upcoming class, Keys to Consciousness for Personal Spiritual Growth, Keys to the Spiritual Path, 4 Wednesdays, October 4th, 11th, 18th, then we're going to skip a week, and then November 1. It will be here. It's $50 per person. And this class explores the journey of spiritual development and introduces mysticism as a personal commitment to spiritual growth through direct experience of the infinite reality. Participants develop a deeper understanding of the unity inherent in religious ideals and universal principles. Please send an email to info@csldenver.org to let us know if you are interested in receiving information about this class and to sign up for the class. And I just want to say that the classes are very contemplative and interactive, and I think that you will find a lot of answers to questions that will lead to more questions. Okay. After the service today, we do have a meditation and a coffee social. Just join us for a mindful moment meditation where we will focus on quieting the mind and being fully present in the now without judgment. We will follow it up by socializing with like-minded people over a cup of coffee or tea at Molecule Effect, which is a couple of blocks away, a coffee shop. We usually all walk down together. We have Older Science of Mind magazines for free on the table next to the fellowship table. The Science of Mind magazine started going bi-monthly in September. So the new magazines are for September and October. However, they are the same price of $4. If you would like to hear some good news of the world to affirm the good in the world, we need that. We have a link on our Facebook page called And Now the Good News. This program is put together by New Thought Media Network and airs on Fridays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, or you can watch these anytime during the week. Just go to the Center for Spiritual Living Denver Facebook page and click on any post that says, And Now the Good News. New Thought Media Network has over 40 hours of weekly broadcast programs. We invite you to go to www.ntmedia.org and check out what they have. There's something for everyone. We are so truly blessed by everyone who has chosen to support CSL Denver by showing up on Sundays or watching our services online. We know that as we move through the rest of this year, the divine beloved is guiding and loving each and every one of us. Thank you for joining us. Now let's close out with Chris Chickering's song, A Prayer for Who We Really Are.
This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. We are light, we are sunshine, we are what we believe. We are hope, we are promise of everything that's yet to be. We are bliss, we are laughter, we are flowers in the spring. We are life, ever flowing, and these are the words that we will sing. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really are. We are strong, we are fearless, we find the comfort in our souls. We are real, we are open to the destiny that's ours to hold. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with for who we really are. We are here, we are present in every moment that we breathe. We are peace, we are freedom, and this is a song for you and me. Yeah, this is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer for who we really. This is a prayer for the love within us. This is a prayer to release our hearts. This is a prayer that we carry with us. This is a prayer